Back in 1927, an American socialist, Norman Thomas, 6 times candidate for president on the Socialist Party ticket, said the American people would never vote for socialism. But he said under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program. One of the traditional methods of imposing statism or socialism on a people has been by way of medicine.
That's exactly right. And we're talking to someone, our guest today. I believe that you knew that man personally, didn't you, or Ronald Reagan?
I know him quite well. I produced his television for about 6 years in the White House, and that voice is the best broadcast voice, other than yours, Cindy Graves, I've ever heard.
Well, when I was listening to that clip this morning, looking for things, by the way, our guest is Neal Freeman, chairman of the Blackwell Corporation, and one of the best political minds I know. He actually was friends with Reagan. His voice is so soothing, isn't it? When you're listening to Reagan, you think, oh my goodness, everything's just fine and life will go on, and then you think, oh wait, that was then, this is now. Because I don't get that.
You can dance to it. He also was a consummate pro. I mean, we'd have a satellite window for 3 minutes, and he'd have a script that he just glanced at the moment before we go live, and you just sort of make a circular motion with your finger, and he'd speed up, and he'd say, God bless you and God bless America, right at the 3-minute mark. It was just uncanny how professional he was. And yes, when the nation was in trouble, I think of the Challenger disaster, when all of America's school children were kind of petrified. Remember, that was the shuttle that lost a school teacher.
It was horrifying.
And Reagan went live, I think it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the entire nation was just tranquilized. He had a great manner and a great feel for language, and he was perhaps one of the great broadcasters of all time. But anyway, I digress.
Well, but the subject he was talking about there, he was also one of the great despisers of socialism and had such great hopes for our country. What would he think of this?
Well, I think we can be confident that he would not have appointed John Roberts. I mean, one of the things about Reagan in a job interview was he had X-ray vision. It didn't matter what you were saying. He would look right into your heart. And, he was fooled occasionally. He made thousands of appointments over the 8 years. But on the big ones, he didn't miss one very often.
And he would have been surprised at Justice Roberts.
Yes, I think this is really disappointing. If I recall correctly, Cindy, and don't take me to the woodshed on this, but I think I'm accurate. I met him when Reagan met him as a young lawyer in the White House counsel office. And John Roberts was a brilliant student. He was at the top of his class at Harvard Law School when Harvard Law School was really special. A few years later, it got taken over by some leftist radicals, and that's when you had Obama as editor of the Law Review. But when Roberts was there, Harvard Law School was Harvard Law School, and he was at the very top of the ladder. Brilliant young attorney, but perhaps too ambitious, too Washingtonian. It's a sad day, no question.
So could this have been a political move of his, in your estimation, to say, if in the future any of his rulings, if they say, oh, you're voting down party lines, well, just take a look back when I voted with the liberals in the historic Obamacare vote?
I think I would never accuse him of being intimidated or jostled or threatened or whatever. What I would accuse him of is being susceptible to the Beltway atmosphere, which is pervasive. I mean, from the moment you get up in the morning and see the Washington Post on your doorstep to the end of the day when you go to a reception for some left-leaning organization, the cultural pressure is very difficult to resist. And in this case, I don't think Roberts resisted it. But no, an honest man, I think it will have the beneficial effect for him and perhaps for us that he is insulated against liberal criticism, at least for some time. because as you've scanned the internet this morning, I mean, he's the hero of the left, the only honest man in Washington. And, you get that kind of torrent of accolades when you do something of which the left approves.
Well, I mean, him saying, I also think that the Obama group was pretty darn sneaky, and this whole thing was always about the Commerce Clause, and the president saying that this was not a tax, there was not going to be any taxes. I mean, I think that there's a lot of hay to be made out of that, especially since it's his own people who argued this before the Supreme Court that it was a tax, and it's being collected by the IRS.
Yeah, Obama now has to go before the electorate on November 6th as the biggest taxer in history, and inadvertently, I think Roberts did us that favor that he called the tax bill a tax bill. It wasn't a mandate, it was a tax bill. And now we all know, and we can vote up or down, and I'm sensing that it's not just the Republican base, it's that Republican cum Tea Party base that's been energized by this. I also think that this particular decision has driven Axelrod and the campaign people crazy because they were all geared up for two campaigns, assuming, as everyone else did, that it would be declared unconstitutional yesterday. First, they were going to go after the Supreme Court. There was a full-scale attack that had been planned and mounted against the court, with Obama saying, see, this is why, with this right-wing court, this knee-jerk Republican court, why we have to reelect me so I can appoint sensible, independent judges. And that argument would have made campaign targets of the old guys on the Supreme Court. And there are a number of old guys. I mean, Tony Kennedy is 75. Nino Scalia is 76. Even Clarence Thomas is mid-60s by now. And all of that attack on the court had to be scuttled. The other thing is that, looking at it from Romney's point of view, why this might be a plus is that had the Affordable Care Act, as it's called, been knocked down, the pressure would have been on Romney as of this morning to come up with an alternative. Because it's true that while Obamacare is widely unpopular, less than 40%, the status quo system is equally unpopular, also less than 40%. So the heat from the media would have been on Romney to say, okay, design a better health care plan overnight yourself.
Well, but he's had several months. I mean, don't you think that, do you suppose that he probably, I mean, because that's one of his soft belly issues, I mean, is health care, coming from his record. And, of course, I believe the difference between the two of them is that Romney absolutely would not vote for Obamacare, and Obamacare, of course, is our president's signature issue. But having said that, I mean, surely Romney is going to come out with some sort of a fabulous plan for health care.
I think so, but he doesn't have to, and the pressure is considerably lessened now because Romney can run against Obamacare. It is the only thing Obama has done. It is his signature legislation. He spent the whole term promoting it and then getting it passed and then defending it. We now know from the blockbuster story in the New York Times last weekend that Timothy Geithner, the principal economic advisor, was begging Obama not to press health care, that it was a bridge too far, that what he wanted Obama to do was focus on the job at hand, which was avoiding a deep recession that might metastasize into a depression. And it was over Geithner's best advice that Obama said, no, I want to make a mark that history will remember, and went with the health care.
Well, I certainly hope that we're remembering him historically soon. We want to get that footnote in the very next textbook printed, don't we? we come back, I want to talk with you about, I had our great friend Marco Rubio on yesterday, and it was quite exciting for all of us here in Jacksonville. He's coming actually here on Monday over to the Orange Park area to Books A Million to sign his book. So that was going great. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about his thoughts in this contempt of Congress charge. My goodness, towards Eric Holder and the 17 who walked off their side of the aisle and voted with us and didn't follow our darling Nancy Pelosi out the door. We're going to come right back after this. Our guest is Neal Freeman, and the subject is Washington politics. There's a lot of it, and we're anxious and eager to discuss it with all of you. Thanks for listening to Talk Radio 600 WBOB. Call us at 854-1320.